Okay. Good morning, everyone, and welcome on behalf of Samuchit Envirotech, Laya Resource Center, and Indian Network on Ethics and Climate Change. We have been doing a project on sustainably smart Pune, which is basically about sustainable urbanization. Under that, various activities have been carried out, and since the pandemic has struck us, we have taken many of these activities online. So one of the things that we do every month is to showcase a good practice which will take us towards sustainability. Under that, today we are talking about one of our own initiatives, which we believe should be taken up by various businesses, industries, even small scale industries, academic institutions, NGOs, other communities, all of these kind of sectors can take up this activity, which will help bring in a culture of climate friendly, low carbon working sort of practices, and take our urban spaces towards low carbon and sustainable existence. And this is about learning to do carbon accounting of our establishment. In this next couple of hours, what we are going to do is first, I'll talk a bit about why we need to focus on carbon accounting. What is it exactly that we are teaching in this course, and how it has been designed, with what is the objective behind it. And then I'll take questions on that. After that, we have a couple of people who just completed this course, our first batch of students, you can say. So they will share how they look at this entire exercise, and where do they think this is going to be useful for them. And then all of us will again respond to all the questions. We have plenty of time, so please be assured every question will be answered. Um, I would request everyone to keep your microphones muted and put your questions in chat as they come in your mind. When I finish my first about 20 minutes of presentation, I'll take up the questions that are already there in chat. Then Madhavi and Tanvi, these are the two students who have just recently completed this course and are now capable of doing carbon accounting on their own. They will share their experiences, and then they will respond to questions, and we will all respond to all of your questions. We all are aware that climate change is really hitting now all of us. Right now, we are experiencing this, especially all over Maharashtra. There are now noticeably more cyclones even in our neighborhoods. And carbon accounting is a term that many of you may have heard. So I'm going to specifically talk first about why this is important in our context today. So just to introduce myself, I am Priyadarshini Karve. I head Samuchit Envirotech, and currently I'm also the national convener of Indian Network on Ethics and Climate Change. We are all aware that after the Industrial Revolution, since humans started using coal and petroleum, fossil fuels, we have been putting additional greenhouse gases, that is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, a variety of gaseous emissions, which are directly linked with burning of fossil fuels and other industrial processes. These are being added to the atmosphere through human activity, and these are all gases which are capable of absorbing heat and holding heat in the Earth's atmosphere. And because of that, the average temperature of the planet is increasing, and we are experiencing this global phenomenon called climate change. What climate change is doing is it is basically increasing the average temperature of the planet. Before the industrial era, the average temperature of the earth was 14 degrees centigrade. By 2015, it had already increased by 1 degree centigrade and gotten to 15 degrees centigrade. Scientists believe that in the worst case scenario, worst case scenario means we continue to use fossil fuels indiscriminately. So, one way to understand a worst case scenario in this case would be that imagine that every country in the world is headed by Donald Trump, who is a climate change denier. So, if everybody was that sort of that ignorant of climate change impacts and that aggressively pursuing use of fossil fuels, then we get into a worst case scenario which will take us to a temperature of about 18 degrees centigrade by the end of this century. That is a 4 degree centigrade increase from the pre industrial era. Researchers also believe that some amount of temperature increase now is inevitable because we cannot simply stop using coal and petroleum from tomorrow. There has to be a gradual changeover, and therefore, some emissions will continue to happen. Realistically, the only thing we can do is we can try to reduce the rate of increase in the global temperature to the best extent possible. Researchers believe that the safe limit would be about 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade above the pre industrial era temperature. So, if we manage to maintain the average temperature of the planet below 16 degrees centigrade by 2100, then we would be able to cope with the impacts. So safe here does not mean that there will be no impacts. There will be impacts, but as a civilization, we have sufficient capacity to be able to withstand those shocks, to be able to survive through those impacts. So that is the general understanding of climate science as on today, and all the global politics as well as people trying to find solutions of climate change revolves around this understanding. And that's where that term you may have heard about 2 degrees centigrade, which is the magic term nowadays in climate change discussions. So this is that 2 degrees centigrade. We need to limit the increase from pre-industrial era or in the average temperature of the planet to 2 degrees centigrade and preferably less. So what has been the effort so far to do that? The first global effort to solve this problem was the Kyoto Agreement, which was signed in 1997 and was operational over the period 2005 to 2012. The idea in this case was for the 37 developed countries who have been maximally using fossil energy right from the Industrial Revolution. So the idea was that these 37 countries should take the onus of solving this problem on themselves, and they should reduce their national level greenhouse gas emissions to a level which would be 5% below their 1990 level of emissions. So that was a condition that was put on 37 developed countries under Kyoto Agreement. This was under the umbrella of United Nations through United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, that is UNFCCC. That's the UN body which specifically addresses climate change issues. So this agreement was signed, as I said, in 1997. Now, what happened during this period of 2005 to 2012 is that there was a lot of, I mean, this was one success of Kyoto Agreement, that there was a lot of talk about climate change, information about climate change spread throughout the world. The mechanism, the main mechanism that was supposed to address this problem under Kyoto Agreement was the carbon market mechanism. Unfortunately, this entire effort was more or less a big failure. The carbon market process was more misused than really used for delivering any real decrease in greenhouse gas emissions. So that was the sad story of Kyoto Agreement and carbon markets. However, while this was going on, under the radar, sort of, there was a voluntary effort by industries, initiated by a group of industries and NGOs and academic institutions from about 2000 onwards. It was felt that this government led global initiative is not really going anywhere much. But in the meanwhile, it was generally the industrial sector which was getting a bad name in the general public because of their because they are the ones who are directly using fossil energy, and therefore they are the ones who are producing greenhouse gas emissions. So there was a tremendous pressure, especially on global businesses, multinational companies, mainly those based in Europe, I should say. There was a lot of pressure on them from their own shareholders, their own investors, as well as customers to address this problem on their own without really getting tangled up in the whole mess of the government led effort. So these guys came together and they are the ones who developed this process, which we now call carbon audit or carbon accounting. This did achieve a small success. So this was a voluntary effort. So only those who wanted to participate in this did participate. But right from the beginning, they have kept it open source and transparent. So every year, many big businesses are accounting their own carbon emissions or greenhouse gas emissions and putting that data in public domain so that anybody can check that data and ask them questions. And year on year, of course, they are also under pressure to show that their emissions are going down, even if their businesses are increasing year on year, and that sort of motivates them to move towards a low carbon way of operating. So this process, to some extent, did achieve small successes, although these didn't get talked about much. The failure of Kyoto Agreement and the overall carbon market discussion is something which we have heard more of. This is not something that is much talked about. What has emerged from this effort is a tool or a standard which is called as the Greenhouse Gas Protocol. It's a corporate accounting and reporting standard which guides companies and other organizations to prepare their own greenhouse gas emission inventories. It maps seven greenhouse gases, including carbon dioxide. Following a single tool by various industries allows the data to be comparable, consistent, and transparency is very much at the basis of this. This is an open source tool. You can simply go to that link which I have shown there. Even if you Google the greenhouse gas protocol, you will get to this page. You can download this document, and the document gives you all the steps of how to do this on your own. So you don't really need any training or anything. You can just pick up this document and start doing this on your own. Of course, there are certain technicalities for which it is useful to have somebody guiding you, but it is not absolutely essential at all. So in that sense, this is a very, very democratic process. Anybody can start doing their own carbon accounting and participate in a reporting mechanism. um, it is interesting on this background now to think about Paris Agreement, which will become operational officially from next year onwards. So after the failure of the Kyoto Agreement, the UNFCCC sort of regrouped and came up with this new agreement, which was signed in 2015. And the basic principles of Paris Agreement are quite different from Kyoto Agreement. And interestingly, these to some extent reflect what the businesses did in 2000s. This is a voluntary process, just as for the businesses it was voluntary. So earlier in Kyoto Agreement, there was a condition that was thrust on only 37 countries, and they had to achieve what they were told to achieve. Under Paris Agreement, countries are making voluntary commitments. They are asked to make their own pledge as to what they are willing to do to address this problem, and the collective target for all the countries together is to keep the global average temperature below 2 degrees centigrade by 2100. So this is an entirely different logic, and because of the success of the voluntary and participatory approach of businesses, there is hope that perhaps this approach will succeed, because all the countries, irrespective of whether they are contributing to the problem or not, are participating in this process. So if you sort of do a comparison, Kyoto Agreement was imposed only on developed countries and had a very rigid approach, whereas Paris Agreement is voluntary, it's for all countries and has a flexible approach. I don't want to give here an impression that Paris Agreement is the best possible way forward from Kyoto. There are issues even with Paris Agreement. One of the things is that Kyoto Agreement clearly acknowledged who are the people or who are the countries responsible for creating this global problem, and it was not wrong to expect that they should take the lead in solving this. In Paris Agreement, we have had to sort of give up on that approach. And even though, even a small country which has never really contributed to the problem is now being asked to make adjustments or make changes to solve the problem. So, in a way, this is not really a very fair way of addressing this, but this seems to be the only practical way of addressing the problem. So in certain limited sense, Paris Agreement is a step forward from Kyoto Agreement. um, the other reason for the hope part of it is in what is going to happen uh, based on what countries have committed. So in 2015, this agreement was signed, and since then, various countries have been making commitments as to what they are willing to do post 2020 or from 2021 onwards. These pledges or proposals that the nations have made are called nationally determined contributions, or NDC. So, researchers took all these NDCs committed by all the countries and added all of this together and figured out that, assuming that everybody actually fulfills all their commitments, we are still not getting to that 1.5 to 2 degrees centigrade range. But instead of going to 4 degrees centigrade above the pre industrial temperature, we will get to 3 degrees centigrade above. So, about we have come down, we are likely to come down by 1 degree centigrade by 2100. So some progress, but not actually reaching where we need to reach. So how do we fill this gap? So one thing to it must be noted is that the pledges that have been made today are for the period 2021 to 2025. So the idea here is that every 5 years, countries will make a new pledge, and step by step, we will therefore move towards this target. So the current pledges are worth only 1 degree centigrade in decrease from where we are headed. Possibly, the next 5 year phase will see countries making more powerful commitments, and we can bring that blue line further down into the green range. Also, one can another way of looking at it is the political process is getting us down to about 3 degrees centigrade. Maybe the voluntary process of industries and other establishments can help fill this gap. So there are a couple of possibilities there, which still keep the hope alive that we have a chance of getting into that safe band at some point in time. As far as India is concerned, we have to be doubly careful, because at this point in time, we are one of the major emitters of greenhouse gases. We are at number three in terms of amount of greenhouse gases being emitted every year. So naturally, the responsibility on us to contribute to this process of um, uh, reducing future climate change impacts is much more. But at the same time, we are also extremely vulnerable to climate change impacts. We are one of those countries which are going to face the maximum damage because of climate change. And this is also, there is another complication in this, that who is the emitter and who is going to suffer the damage. Those who use more energy, naturally they are the ones who are contributing to the problem, and that is mainly urban middle and high income group Indians. But who is going to suffer the damage the most? It will be the rural, tribal, and urban poor Indians. So this is also another aspect of it, that different population groups are involved in these two things. So whatever commitments we make under Paris Agreement, we have to be extremely careful that while trying to reduce carbon emissions, we should not compromise the ability of the marginalized to improve their quality of life. So that's a very balancing act that we have to do in order to meet our commitments under Paris Agreement. Um, India's commitment under Paris Agreement is actually, the current commitment is considered to be one of the better ones because it is compatible with the 2 degree centigrade target of Paris Agreement. We have essentially committed three main things, and we have said that we will achieve these three things by 2030. One is to reduce our emissions per GDP by about 30 to 35%. Now, this is something which, for which we don't really have to do much. It is anyway happening on its own. The second commitment is that we will, whatever electricity generation we are doing in the country, by 2030, 40% of that will come from non-fossil power generation. Uh, we are currently set to meet this target by 2022 or 23 itself. So we will be sort of overachieving this target. The third target is about removing greenhouse gases from the atmosphere through tree plantation or through forestation. About 2.5 to 3 billion ton carbon dioxide equivalent carbon to be removed. Sequestration means you remove from the atmosphere and hold it on the Earth's surface, and we are proposing to achieve this through forestation. This third one is a bit controversial, and researchers believe, experts believe that we are going to miss this target. But still, we are doing okay compared to many other countries. Now, this is where you must be wondering why I am talking so much about Paris Agreement, because there is a direct significance here. See, this is the commitment for things that we will put in place by 2025. So what happens next? We will now already have to start thinking about, Indian government will have to start thinking about what are we going to commit to for the period after 2025. And that has to be over and above these things which we have already committed ourselves to. So to cut a long story short, if you think about this electricity generation scenario, generating more than 40% electricity using renewable energy is not a very realistic proposition. So what is most likely going to happen is that the government will have to start looking at the demand side. Whatever is to be achieved on the supply side, they have already committed for that, and they will be achieving it easily by 2030. So how can you further reduce greenhouse gas emissions from energy is to look at the energy use side. You have to now think about better efficiency, and at the industry level how the demand for energy is being managed. And that can be done only by carbon accounting. How do you verify whether the industries are using or emitting less greenhouse gases in their use of energy? The only way to map that is through carbon accounting. So under these international agreements, we don't only make commitments and we don't only declare that we have achieved this, we have to provide evidence. So evidence for this type of a strategy will require everybody to do carbon accounting. And I'm not just saying this like that. Already, if you look at some of the European country NDCs, they have added something like this. Several European countries have said that industries in a particular sector will be asked to reduce their carbon emissions and provide evidence by carbon accounting. So it is highly likely that something like this will appear in the 2025 commitment from Government of India. The other thing is the carbon sequestration part. One of the reasons why this is a bit controversial is because there isn't an agreement on how do we sort of measure the carbon sequestration in forestation. So we need to somewhere reach an agreement on the accounting principles for that and start accounting it, because just saying that I have planted 1 billion trees is not sufficient. Under Paris Agreement, you will have to show that that means that this much carbon has been removed from the atmosphere, and for that also accounting will have to be done. So all in all, looking at this, I believe that for young people, new career options are going to open up post 2025, because if industries and other entities have to mandatorily do carbon accounting, they are going to need carbon accountants and carbon auditors. Right now, most of the people who are providing this service, firstly the number is very small, and secondly most of these firms, the companies that they work for, are international companies. So the charges are also of international standards, and that is why only MNCs and big entities can really get into this process. But in order to achieve our commitments going ahead, we will have to broaden the base of carbon accounting. And for that, we will need many more carbon accountants and carbon auditors. Those have to be homegrown so that the charges will also be affordable for even small businesses, academic institutions, NGOs, and so on. In addition to this, even at the organizational level, in order to interact with these consultants, people will need to have some basic understanding of what is involved in carbon accounting. So we feel that the carbon accounting literacy must increase among engineers, architects, business managers, entrepreneurs, organizational heads, and so on and so forth. So everybody needs to now understand at least the basic idea of what is involved in carbon accounting in order to sort of live and do business in the climate changing world of tomorrow. So, and it's not just industries and businesses, but as I said, academic campuses need to do this, government, semi government premises can also go in for this. Gated communities and housing colonies can also do carbon accounting. Non profit organizations also have campuses, they can do carbon accounting. So, there is a very wide range of stakeholders who can contribute to this kind of an effort to reduce greenhouse gas emissions of our country. This has other advantages. You will be measuring your carbon emissions, optimizing and reporting. All of this effectively means you will be reducing your use of fossil fuel based energy, which means that you are going to save money. Your profit margins will increase. Also, people are also now more conscious about climate change. The literacy about climate change is increasing in the general population, and therefore people are also very conscious about what they are purchasing, which services they are using, whether these are green, whether they are low carbon. These kind of questions are being asked. So doing this kind of a process in a very transparent and open source manner will allow you to green your brand. So this is in a way a win-win situation. So it makes even business sense to acquire this new skill and start making carbon accounting a mainstream part of your business operations. This is actually a long process that you will start on once you get into this. So you are going to build an entire process on the basis of this whole carbon accounting. The first step in this is carbon neutrality, where you try to reduce your emissions to the best extent possible. At the same time, you also try to increase some carbon sinks, some ways of removing carbon from the atmosphere, so that the balance is reduced to zero. The next step would be zero carbon, where irrespective of the sink, you try to reduce your carbon emissions themselves entirely to zero. And third and more ambitious step is carbon negative. So now you have zero emissions. Now you increase your carbon sink so that your sum total comes to be negative. So that you are removing more carbon than what you are putting. Or you are not putting any carbon in the atmosphere, and you are removing a lot of carbon. So these are the three steps, sort of a ladder of climate friendliness, which may take an organization 20, 30 years to get there. So it's a sort of a lifelong activity of accounting improving. That an organization will have to commit to, and that means that much is the sort of the at least the life of this carbon accounting business that we are looking at. So, keeping all of this in mind, we launched this course some time back, which is an online course on basic carbon accounting, which is focused on developing a very, very basic understanding of carbon accounting. So, we are not, I should emphasize this, that we are not teaching any specific carbon accounting tool to a large extent. What we are focusing on is just the basic principles of carbon accounting. So through this course, our aim is to create that carbon accounting literacy that I was talking about, that everybody who is a good professional should now understand at least that much. That is the level that we are aiming at. So this course by itself is not going to make you suddenly a professional carbon auditor or anything like that, but it will give you a flavor of carbon accounting. And if you feel that this is what you want to do in your life, then there are open source, as I said, it's all open source, the resources are available on the internet. This course would have given you enough understanding of the subject that you will be able to self learn any specific tool in great detail, in great depth, and become a carbon auditor. Otherwise, with this knowledge that we are giving you, you can internally account or internally audit your own business, or the business that you are working for, or the academic institution that you are working for. An internal back of the envelope calculation kind of a thing you can definitely do. So even if you want to hire a consultant, before that, if you do this exercise, then you will get more value for the money that you pay to your consultant. So that is the perspective. So I hope it is clear what the course will do and what it will not do. Both the things are important to understand. The prerequisites, who should do this course? So actually the mathematics and other things involved are not very difficult, but as I said, this would be useful skill for those who are going to work in industries, or in the NGO sector, or in the environmental sector, or even in the academic sector. So you can approach it either from having the technical knowledge and now wanting to learn the accounting part, or you may be already doing financial accounting and you can add this on to that as an additional skill of being able to do carbon accounting. Both the things are possible. But actually, everyone and anyone can learn the basic principles. The more basic background technical knowledge you have, the more in depth understanding you will develop more easily. But whatever we are teaching in this course, anybody who has learned up to science, up to 12th standard, It's not really much more beyond that. There are 5 modules to the course. It is self-paced. It's online. The modules are already there prepared. So you do one module and then the next module will be sent to you. So you are not dependent on any classroom sessions or anything like that. So you decide the pace at which you want to complete this course. It gives you theoretical knowledge, but its focus is really on practical application. So what we will be asking you to do is you have to select 2 entities around you, and we will guide you step by step. You will be actually doing carbon accounting for those 2 entities while doing this course. So you learn by doing in that sense. And these entities could be anything, a small school nearby, or even your local grocery shop. You can do carbon accounting for them as long as they are willing to share their energy data with you, and maybe keep some data to help you do this calculation. You can choose any small entity just to get this hands-on understanding of how does this actually work in practice. So the 5 modules are somewhat like this. You start by learning how to do your personal carbon footprinting, and you also understand there how using slightly different tools will give you slightly different results, but it's not really, nothing is wrong. You take the accuracy to the level that fulfills your requirement. So that's how this whole carbon accounting process goes. Then we define a couple of things which are important for framing your carbon accounting limits, and that is boundary and base year. Then we talk about scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. Then the fourth module is scope 3 emissions, and fifth module is about carbon sinks and offsets. Now let me make it very clear that any carbon accounting tool, especially the corporate carbon accounting tools that exist, do not talk about sinks and offsets. They stop at scope 3 emission. This is an additional thing that we are teaching because of the reasons that I mentioned earlier, that I feel that accounting for carbon sequestration is also going to be a demand that will start coming up in the next few years. So this is something over and above what you will learn in just any carbon accounting tool based course. Just to tell you what these terms are, and it will also give you a sense of what it is that you are accounting when you do carbon accounting, and therefore you can decide whether this is something that you want to do. Scope 1 means direct use of fossil fuels on your location. So suppose you have an electric generator and it runs on diesel, then that is scope 1 emission whenever diesel is used for backup supply. Use of energy carriers on location is called scope 2. So the electricity that you get from the grid and you use it, the emissions for producing that electricity have happened elsewhere, but because you are using that electricity, those are your emissions. So these are called scope 2 emissions. And scope 3 is everything else. So the building infrastructure that you have, the machinery you have, the goods and the goods that you purchase, the waste management practices that you indulge in, the contractual services that you use, all of this involve use of energy and therefore emissions. All of this comes under scope 3. Now obviously scope 3 is more difficult to account for, and therefore most tools, or the standard sort of convention is that in any accounting process, any carbon accounting process, scope 1 and scope 2 is compulsory. You have to do this. Scope 3, you do as much as you can, at least list all the contributors and then account for or quantify as much of that as you can. That's the general convention. Sinks are any green areas within your boundary which are absorbing carbon, or it could be some tree plantation or other carbon sequestration initiatives that you are funding. Those will be your sinks. Offsets are things like rooftop solar system, for example, or some technological retrofit that you are doing for improving efficiency, or any waste minimization or zero waste processes that you have. you an idea that what it is that is accounted for when we do carbon accounting. So that's about it. Basically, the whole idea, therefore, in a nutshell, is that carbon accounting is going to be an important skill for anybody in the professional life. Even in the construction industry, which is moving towards now green buildings, etc., this whole low carbon aspect is going to become very, very important, because steel and cement are the most contributors of greenhouse gas emissions. So all eyes will be on construction industry, how they can reduce their emissions, and therefore accounting, carbon accounting, will also become important in the construction industry, as well as, of course, manufacturing industry, service businesses, and, as I said, academic institutions, NGOs, etc. So because this is going to become an important necessary skill going ahead, and there are just a handful of people who are capable of doing this technically right now, we feel that the overall literacy about carbon accounting must increase in the general public. And that for that we have designed this course and are offering this. So I'll stop here. If there are any questions, I would take those, and then we can move forward. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, so that is basically the calculation, is that what is the total greenhouse gas emissions of your country divided by total GDP of the country. What is that ratio? The assumption there is that as you increase your GDP, your energy consumption goes up, and therefore your emissions also go up. If you can reduce the energy density of your GDP, that means you are achieving increase in GDP without increasing greenhouse gas emissions. So that's the whole idea there.
Okay, thanks a lot, ma'am.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see the questions there. How would the EIA bill have affected or will affect the first goal to reduce emissions versus GDP? The EIA goal will have more of indirect effects on climate change. The bigger impacts of the whole EIA mess, I should say, are for biodiversity, for local water bodies and things like that. So it's more of local impacts that are the bigger concern. Of course, the overall increase in mining and industries and all of that is contributing to our greenhouse gas emissions. So that is anyway there. But the bigger reason to oppose the amendments in EIA are related with the immediate and local impacts. Anything else? Okay, if not, then I think we can invite our guests. I'm just going back to the presentation. Uh, just a minute. So we have actually several people are doing this course, and because it is self-paced, people are at different level. But the two of the students who already finished it, these are the first students to actually graduate out of the course, and therefore we thought that this is the right time to have this webinar. So we have invited Madhavi Rane and Tanvi Gaisas. to talk to us about their experience of doing this course, and how do they see, or do they see that this is going to be useful for them or not. And I should congratulate both Madhavi and Tanvi, because as you can see on these certificates, both of them have got A plus grade in this course. So they have done very well, and they have also finished ahead of other people who enrolled in the course in the first lot. Over to you. Who is going first? I don't know. Madhavi, perhaps.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Uh, so I was actually waiting for this course. I was still like I remember you had said you are going to launch, and I was desperately waiting for this course because I wanted to learn this since a very long time. But always when I used to search on internet, it was very confusing for me, and calculations and maths. I'm scared of all that, so I really needed that basic. Understanding. And to start off, this really helped me as you explained in your presentation. I really like the fact that we would understand first what the concepts, the definitions, and then we would practically implement the formulas in Excel. So it was very very easy. I didn't find like I think anyone with basic understanding can easily do it. And I was doing it basically for my own self. As my family, we have a manufacturing unit, and I wanted to take responsibility of carbon which I am emitting. So this was my first aim. And when I started doing it, I also started implementing this little changes. Like I told our accountant to now only each month, if she I gave her one Excel sheet where she could only add data which I needed for this course. So now I think real data or real real success is when, because this was my base year, now when I start reducing each year, that will be something which I am looking forward to. And I also really liked how it was self-paced, because sometimes because of other commitments I couldn't do pay much attention to this course, but still I was able to cover it, and that really helped me. And because I am in MIDC industrial area, I when I was doing this course, I had also this idea of when I complete this, I can approach other small scale industries so they can also do this and start because I felt if all accountants start recording, someone who has done this course will just need little bit time to formulate the end result, and this will give basic idea, though not perfect. But when we talk about zero waste lifestyle or sustainable lifestyle, having some figures is really important to move ahead, because we can't just talk vaguely that I am living sustainably. Numbers really help. And for industries especially, it when they present their reports, it really adds that value in their portfolio. So this was my reason to join the course. And after this, I've also started accounting for few of my friends who are running NGOs and schools. And I'm for some, like I'm doing 10 uh, extra courses, extra audits, just to understand it better and have that confidence. And it was really helpful for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Madhavi, and good to know that you are now sort of spreading this out and doing it for others also. That's really great. Is Tanvi there?
Yeah, hi.
Yeah. Hi.
Uh, Thanks, Madhuri. That was really nice to hear. I haven't, as such, started spreading it as much, but it was a really good experience. And so I did my accounting for a hospital and a genetics company. And they were both on different scales. So the genetics company was a bit larger. And there was, I realized when you go on field, like you look at everything that was given from the courses side, like the administrative side, that was very well laid out and precise. But when you go onto the field and talk to people, the reality is like very messy. There's no proper data kept for something. So we had to extrapolate some data for like gather 2 months data and then extrapolate from that and move forward. And they were also very intrigued by the sinks and offsets wala part. So they have huge plots that they're planting of trees, and they recently got solar. So they talk to me about doing this audit every year so that they can sort of present that in their findings. And it was quite interesting. For the hospital, especially, there's a lack of data kept on the amount of biomedical waste produced. So I'm just trying to think of systems that could be used to, better figure that out. And with the COVID situation right now, this is not on
Yeah.
anyone's priority. So if anyone has any suggestions on how to bring it up on the priority list, that would be great. And I really enjoyed doing it. Like Madhuri said again, it was self-paced. So in the middle when sometimes you can't, concentrate on this, it's great. And I'm also doing my master's side by side, so in sustainability and behavior change. So I really want to incorporate the two together and then see how that goes. So overall, a very positive experience. So thank you very much, Dr. Karve and Purnimate.
Thank you, Tanvi. I should actually, what you said is a very, very important point. What happens is when any organization or any company starts this journey of carbon accounting, this is one challenge that is going to happen is that the data that you need for doing the accounting is not always available. And that is why it helps to do this as an iterative process that first year you may not have all the data, but then you explain to people what kind of data needs to be maintained, and you give them some processes for maintaining that data. And then slowly, as the quality of the data improves, the quality of the accuracy of your accounting will also improve, and you will get clearer and clearer picture from that perspective also. And this was my own experience. One IT company in Pune called me to help them with their carbon accounting because some of their clients were demanding this data. And I realized that this whole process will go much easier if people working in the company have some idea as to what is required for carbon accounting, so that they will be able to create the systems for maintaining data and everything. So from that perspective also, having this carbon accounting literacy at least will be very useful at the industry level. It will make the job of the consultants also much easier. So from that perspective also, I strongly advocate businesses to sort of depute people to learn this. It will help them to improve the quality of the accounting that they are going to get. Any questions, comments? I'll just stop sharing.
I have a comment.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yes. Thank you so much, Madhuri and Tanvi. I'm also a student, but I have not been able to complete the course as yet. And your experiences have kind of motivated me to take it up back again and complete it. What I want to add is that when I did the lifestyle uh, workshop with
Workshop.
yes, I did not know that everyone of us has a personal carbon budget, and I see even now in my friends, family, acquaintances that though people are aware of climate change or
Mhm.
even alarmed by it, they do not know that the budget per capita budget is only 2 tons. So that is the starting point, and as Kavar ma'am has shown us, the scope is huge. So it is great that I'm part of this small team, and I wish to complete the course as soon as possible. Thank you. Thank you,
Great.
Karme ma'am and Purnima. You have always been a great inspiration. Thank you.
Thanks, Isha. And I should actually mention this, that somebody who is behind the curtains right now, Purnima Agarkar. I would not have been even dared to launch this course if she was not with me. Because I have prepared the modules, but dealing with the students and assessing the submissions and keeping everyone on track and trying to push people to complete, all of that is being handled by Purnima. So she's sort of the backbone of this whole exercise. I'm not the kind of a person who can chase people to do things, but she's doing that. So if anybody feels irritated by all the messages coming to us, blame her, not me. So any more questions, comments? Anyone wants to add anything, Madhavi, Tanvi, or anyone else in the audience?
I actually have something. So one of the organizations that I looked at, they are interested in doing this, and if they were wanting me to ask you, you and Purnimata as well, can we take this forward in collaboration with Samujit? And I wanted to know how, like, well or how accurate my, carbon accounting is, so that I can, they want to make it an official thing and do it every year. So in that way, if it can be like after all, like a few of us finish, maybe the course, like along with me and Madhuri, maybe 5, 6 people, maybe we can as a team approach uh, more people and more companies, and then have the students do the on-field analysis and then have it verified by the by your team at a higher level. That was
Yeah,
one of my.
that's actually a good suggestion, and that was sort of the idea in our mind also in starting this. That if we have a lot of people who are able to do the basic work, then we can just come in wherever the fine tuning is needed. And as I mentioned earlier, this is a sort of an iterative journey. The accuracy will depend on two things. One is how much in-depth analysis you are doing, and that depends on selection of the right tool for doing the accounting. And secondly, the quality of the data. Now, what we have done is we have kept it at a very simplistic level. So the focus is not so much on accuracy in these early days, but to give a confidence to the organization also that we can do this. We have the data. We can come up with some numbers, and then slowly we can take them, also handhold them to improve the quality of data on their side. And as we understand their processes better, that will help us choose the right kind of calculation processes for them, best suited for them, or customize the existing processes to suit their operations. And that's how we go on increasing the accuracy of the process. So that's the way forward. And for that, yes, the whole that is in a way the idea that the extension work, the basic work can be done by all of you who are doing this course, and we will do the more refined work that is needed. And that way we sort of all help each other. The organizations get the right kind of guidance. You can also earn money from this, and we can also earn money from this. So everybody is happy in the process.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
So those who are attending this webinar, if you want to share something about like what motivated you, because we were a bit hesitant, to be very frank, because this is not a topic that everybody generally knows of. So how to even advertise and explain this to people is a bit difficult. So what made you feel that you should attend this webinar of today's? Those who are in the audience, anyone, if you would like to share that.
Hello.
Yes.
Yeah, I had attended a workshop of yours last year. So during
Okay.
that time, I had gotten to know that there's something of this sort that you are offering. But at that time, I
Mhm.
was too busy and I just couldn't get time. And I was also applying for masters at that time. So I was a bit busy all over. But then I'm also on the WhatsApp group. So I thought that this
Oh, I
was a
see.
good Saturday to learn something new. And I also shared with my friends. So a couple of them were interested. They weren't able to make it today.
Mhm. Mhm.
But I think it's quite surprising that many people don't know about this, even though so many people do talk about it, but not directly. They talk about it very indirectly. So
Yeah.
um, I don't know if I don't e- like I'm very active on Instagram and I keep on looking at things like this. So it's quite surprising that I haven't even come across any
Mhm.
account which is even talking about this. So I think that would be a great platform to kind of start spreading some sort of information or knowledge about it.
Yeah, that's true. What has happened is even our academic processes tend to be a bit outdated. So, it took a long time, firstly, for climate change to start coming into academic curricula.
Mm-hmm.
And then they mostly talk, even now, the Indian universities, whenever they are talking about climate change, they are talking about Kyoto Agreement and carbon market. Anything beyond carbon market you will hardly find reflected in the curricula, and that is why carbon accounting nobody is even talking about. Even now I keep on getting inquiries that we want to get into carbon market, and how do we do it when the market has been sort of dead and buried for many years now. So that is one unfortunate thing. We have been trying to raise awareness at our end, but that has been a sort of a very limited effort. Um, in a way, this going online with webinars and all hopefully will help us reach to more people,
Yeah.
because otherwise it becomes very difficult to go beyond a certain circle. We
Mm-hmm.
were doing a lot of activities in Pune city, but outside we didn't have the reach which we are now getting through the online
Correct.
platforms. So hopefully that will also help.
Yeah. I think one thing you should check out is this organization called Impact.
Mhm.
IMPAAKT. And what they're doing
Oh,
is that
okay.
they're
Yeah.
sort of grading or like grading companies based on CSR activities and their sustainable activities as well.
Mhm. Mhm.
So what
Mhm.
they're doing is they're inviting people like you and me to go and read their material and
Mhm.
grade them. So
Okay.
they're kind of involving the people because they are the
Right.
direct consumers, so they'll be
Yeah.
able to tell
That's
how the
interesting.
company is
Yeah.
doing.
Mhm.
So it's something new. A lot of, and you get paid. So if you give a
Mhm.
note, yes. So if you give an, it's like a proper thing. Like you're supposed to study. It's like
Yeah.
about seven
Yeah. Yeah.
assignments
Yeah.
or so.
No,
And
that's
then
that's very
yeah,
interesting actually. Yeah.
just
So where
yeah,
is it, like it's based in India or
no,
outside or?
no. I think it's probably some European country.
Mm-hmm.
Um, 1 second, I'll just send it on the group.
Yeah, you can put the links in the chat, and then everybody can check it out. But that's very interesting actually, and we do need things like that. I can even suggest it to my students. They
Yeah,
have to do an exercise on trying to assess a company's sustainability report. So maybe
hmm,
I'll put them onto this.
yeah.
They can even earn some money doing it.
Yeah, so it's like when you do that, I think when you're, so there are all people on the other side who are fact checking you. So
Hmm,
if
hmm,
your note, which is about, I think, 1200 characters or something, or
hmm.
2000 characters, and if it's good enough, then you get paid 30 euros per
Okay,
small
not
note.
bad. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a good deal.
And you learn in the process, so that's
Correct,
it's a win-win
right.
situation. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks for that tip. We'll definitely check it out.
Yes. Otherwise, this was great. I really loved it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, cool. All right, cool. Okay. Yes, thank you. I'll check them out. Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay, ma'am, I am from Bhuj, Kutch.
Yes.
या बेसिकली हमारा जो लास्ट सेमिनार हुआ था ना प्राची बेन के साथ जो
हाँ,
HIC के
हाँ.
साथ जो किया था मी एंड अदर 2-3 लोग थे जो उसने कार्बन के लिए हमने थोड़ा ट्रेनिंग लेने का सोचा था मैडम
कार्बन फुटप्रिंट, पर्सनल
हाँ
कार्बन फुटप्रिंट वाला.
हाँ कार्बन हाँ उस ऑल्सो हम सोच रहे थे कि भुज के लिए बिल्कुल नया है हमारे लिए तो हम उसको आगे कैसे बताएं आई डोंट नो बट हम थोड़ा गाइडेंस लेंगे यहाँ से हमारे जो HIC कोऑर्डिनेटर है प्राची बहन
हाँ.
उनसे भी और आपसे भी तो वो अभी मैंने यहाँ पे जुड़ा हूँ बहुत थोड़ा बहुत मेरा लर्निंग भी हुआ भुज के लिए टोटल न्यू कॉन्सेप्ट है तो उनको आगे हम
हाँ.
कैसे बताएंगे तो इसलिए हम देख रहे हैं कि पता नहीं कैसे हो गए वी डोंट नो लेकिन हमको बहुत इंटरेस्ट है कि ये होना चाहिए ये
नहीं,
जरूरी
जरूर होगा क्योंकि
हाँ
हमारी बात भी हो रही है HIC के साथ. सो
ओके
डेफिनेटली ये काम हम आगे बढ़ाएंगे ही भुज में.
ओके मैडम मेरा मेरा बैकग्राउंड अकाउंटेंट्स के लिए नहीं
अच्छा.
है लेकिन आई एम इंटरेस्टिंग इन द विथ एनवायरनमेंट
या.
तो इंटरेस्ट की वजह से मैं बहुत आराम से सीख लूँगा ये पूरा
हाँ, हाँ, इसमें जरूरी नहीं है कि फाइनेंशियल अकाउंटिंग का नॉलेज हो.
या
ये जरूरी नहीं है. आपको इंटरेस्ट होना चाहिए, यही सही बात है एक्चुअली.
हाँ ओके थैंक यू मैडम
थैंक यू.
या
Okay, I think if no other comments, then we can stop here, I guess. I hope that you got some useful information out of it, and those who are already enrolled got motivation. That is good. So, Isha, I'm looking forward to your next submission.
Yes. Yes. Thanks a lot for this, ma'am. Thank you so much.
So thank you all for finding time on a Saturday morning to join us. We have recorded this webinar. Hopefully, if the recording is usable, then it will be available on YouTube. So you can then spread the word to other people also. There are several people who contacted us and said that they would like to attend, but today they are not able to find the time. So hopefully they'll be able to catch this on YouTube, and the discussions can, of course, continue. Purnima, I think almost everyone here is already part of our WhatsApp groups, I guess now. Yeah. So we don't need to do that advertising. Okay.
Yeah, through registration, you have got my number and everything.
हाँ. ओके, अभी यूट्यूब पे हम डालेंगे तो वो देख सकते हैं, फिर सारे लोग ही देख सकते हैं भुज में भी
हाँ
जो भी
ठीक
इंटरेस्टेड है.
हाँ या मैडम
ठीक है, तो लेट अस स्टॉप हियर फॉर टुडे. ओके.
Okay.
थैंक यू very
Thank
much.
you.
Okay, thanks.
Good day. Yes.
Thank you.
You and good day. Bye.
Thank you.